3 months is a long stretch to sit on the truth. This story is called I Found My Wife's Burner Phone and Waited 3 months. This is the story of a cheap little phone and the marriage it ended. I am 40 years old. I run machines at a shop in South Louisiana. 18 years on a shop floor teaches you one thing: you measure twice before you ever cut once. A part is either in spec or it is scrap. There is no such thing as close enough. So when my wife's story stopped adding up, I got quiet. I did not yell. I did not guess. I started checking. My wife is 46. We were married for 15 years. We have 2 kids, a boy of 11 and a girl of 7. For most of those years, we were the boring kind of happy. I worked days, and she ran the house. The calendar on the fridge ran our whole lives. She handled the school runs and the doctor visits. I handled the bills and the cars and the yard. It was not exciting, but it worked. I thought it worked anyway. About 10 months before any of this, she hurt her shoulder. She said she did it lifting a laundry basket. The doctor sent her to physical therapy. It was supposed to be twice a week for 6 weeks. 6 weeks turned into 2 months. 2 months turned into something with no end date. She bought new workout clothes for it. She got a gym bag she kept by the back door. I never questioned any of it. Why would a man question his wife fixing her shoulder? The appointments were always late morning. She went after the school drop-off while I was at the shop. She would come home a little flushed, a little quiet. I chalked it up to the exercises. Remember that gym bag, because it matters later. The thing that finally caught my eye was not a text. It was not a phone call either. It was a charger. We are an Apple house, all of us. Every phone and every cord is the same white plug. One morning, I was digging in her car for the registration. A trooper had a checkpoint set up on my road to work. My hand closed on a cord that was wrong. It was a cheap black Android cable, the kind they sell by the register at a gas station. We do not own a single Android anything. I held that cord like a part that came off the line, measuring wrong. Something was out of spec. And once you see that, you cannot unsee it. I did not go through her phone. Her phone was right there in her hand in the kitchen. I went looking for whatever that cord plugged into. I checked the house first, drawers and coat pockets. I checked the glove box and under the seats. It took me 4 days of quiet looking. I found it in a zipped side pocket of that gym bag. It was a little prepaid phone, the kind you buy with cash. It was not even locked. It never crossed her mind that someone would look. I want to be honest about what that moment felt like. It did not feel like a movie. There were no shaking hands, no dramatic music. It felt like the floor going dead quiet, like the second right after a machine throws a part. There was one contact saved in that phone. It sat under the name of a woman from her old book club, except every message in there was from a man. The man was her physical therapist. 7 months of messages. They went back almost to the day her shoulder stopped healing. I will keep most of it to myself. You can fill in the blanks. But there was plenty about where to meet. There was plenty about the hours I would be stuck at the shop. There was a whole thread about a weekend I worked overtime. He called her a pet name I never once called her. More than a few times, he wrote the words, "Delete this." He asked her once if it was safe to call. She told him only after 11. I read every message twice, the way I read a print twice before I run apart. My ears were ringing the whole time. I scrolled all the way back to the very first message between them. It landed right around the week her shoulder supposedly went bad. So the injury and the affair started the same week. That was no coincidence, and I knew it standing there. She had built a fake reason to slip away twice a week. I had even driven her to a couple of those first visits myself. I used to wait in the lot and check my work email while she went inside. I felt like a fool for every one of those quiet mornings. A fool who measures still walks away with the right number, though. So I quit feeling sorry for myself and started keeping count. Counting is the one thing I have always been good at. Then I put the phone back exactly where I found it. I zipped the pocket and set the bag by the door. Here is where most men would have walked in swinging. I am not most men. 18 years on a floor had trained the swinging out of me. A reaction is just scrap, and I did not want scrap. I wanted the whole thing dead on before I showed it to a soul. So I made a decision standing in that garage. I was going to wait. I was going to get every single thing in order first. That night, I slept in the spare room. I told her my back was acting up. That was the first of about 90 nights in that room. I did not sleep that first night. I lay there and did the math on 15 years. The kids were down the hall, asleep, not knowing a thing. Part of me wanted to wake her up and let all of it out, but screaming would have bought me nothing. By morning, the anger had cooled into something useful. It had turned into a plan. A plan is just a part you have not cut yet. You start with the drawing, and you work the steps in order. Rushing a part is how you ruin it. I was not about to ruin this one. On my next lunch break, I found a divorce attorney and called her. I sat in the far corner of the shop parking lot to do it. I told her everything. The phone, the therapist, the 7 months, all of it. The first thing she told me was what not to do. I listened like my job depended on it. She said, "Do not let my wife know that I know." The second she figured it out, she would lawyer up and hide money. She said, "Do not touch that little phone again." She said, "Do not record anybody because the state has rules about that." She said the cleanest proof was already building itself. It was the pattern of appointments that matched no real clinic. Then she told me what my wife was facing here. She explained that in Louisiana, adultery is its own ground for divorce. You do not have to live apart for a whole year first. If I could prove it, my wife would be barred from permanent alimony. She walked me through the money too. Louisiana splits everything down the middle as community property. The part that mattered most was the timing. The day I filed, the clock would stop. Everything I earned after that day became mine alone. So, the smart play was simple. Get my position set, then file, then never look back. I asked her how long that would take. She said as long as I needed to do it right. For a machinist, that was the only language I needed. I gave it 3 months. People hear 3 months and think I was being patient. Patience had nothing to do with it. I was building a case the way I build a part, one measured step at a time. The first step was a separate account at a different bank. I left the joint account alone. Draining it would have made me look like the bad guy. Instead, I started routing my paychecks into the new account. A little at a time, nothing dramatic. My attorney said, write everything down and hide nothing. So I kept a clean record of every cent that moved. Over those weeks, I set aside about 3 months of bills. On a machinist pay, that is not nothing. I packed my lunches. I skipped the bar with the guys after shift. I told nobody why. I also opened a credit card in just my name. She warned me my wife might cut me off the day I filed. Then I started copying paperwork, the boring stuff that actually wins these things, tax returns, and the mortgage file, both of our retirement statements, the titles to the cars. I photographed all of it on my phone during the day. She was at her appointments, so the house was mine. One afternoon, she came home early and almost caught me at it. I heard the garage door and slid the folder back in the drawer. I was at the sink rinsing a glass before she hit the doorway. My heart was running like a spindle at full speed. She asked why I was home, and I said I forgot my safety glasses. She believed me, because by then she believed all of it. It was a strange thing to live, standing in our kitchen, photographing our life like it was evidence, because that is exactly what it was now. I called the clinic one slow afternoon and asked about their hours. A machinist always checks the spec sheet, so I checked hers. They closed at noon on the day she swore she had late sessions. That one phone call turned my file from a hunch into a fact. A guy at the shop asked if me and my wife were doing all right. He said I had gone quiet out on the floor. I told him I was just tired, and I changed the subject. I met my attorney a second time to set the order of the steps. File on a normal morning. Serve her at the house. Keep the kids somewhere else when it landed. Everything after that would run on paper, not on a shouting match. I wrote the steps on an index card. I kept that card in my wallet and read it more than anything else. The hardest part was not the paperwork. It was not the money either. The hardest part was dinner. Sitting across from her every night and saying nothing. She would ask about my day. I would tell her about a part we scrapped, and she would laugh. I would laugh too. Then I would go to the spare room and add a page to my notes. I got my boy through a birthday in the middle of it. I helped my girl with her reading after supper. The whole time there was a folder in my truck that ended their parents. I logged every appointment that ran too long. I logged every night she came home after 11. I logged every charge on the statement that looked wrong to me. I had a thick file before she ever suspected a thing. I gave her nothing to suspect. I started keeping the kids closer on my days off. I learned which teacher to call and which form the school needed. I wanted them landing soft when the floor finally dropped. There was a cookout at her sister's in the middle of all this. She held my hand on the porch like nothing in the world was wrong. I held it right back. A flinch would have cost me 3 months of careful work. That was the longest hour of the whole stretch. I drove home and wrote that down too. My attorney gave me one more rule. It turned out to be the most important one of all. She said, "Do not play the loving husband trying to fix the marriage. In this state, if it looks like you forgave her and got back together, it can wipe the adultery clean." So I did not beg. I did not plan a trip. I said nothing about working things out. One night she came and sat on the edge of the spare bed. She put her hand on my shoulder and asked if we could try. Every part of me wanted to throw that phone on the bed right then. Instead, I told her I was just tired and I rolled over. I could not hand her a reconciliation to point at later. I just went quiet. Quiet is a thing a wife notices, even when a fight is not. About 2 months in, she asked me straight if something was wrong. I told her the shop was slammed and my back still hurt. She looked at me a second too long. I held her eyes the way I hold a reading on a gauge. Then she let it go. The affair had made her lazy about me. That is the thing about a cheater. They get so good at lying that they stop watching for it. There was one bad week. The little phone disappeared out of the gym bag. For 2 days, I was sure I had tipped her off. My stomach was down in my boots, but she had only moved it to the console in her car. By then, it did not matter. I had copied what I needed weeks before. I had measured twice, and the part was holding. At the start of the 3rd month, my attorney sent out an investigator, just once, to close the loop. He sat in a public lot and watched her car meet his car. He watched them walk into a place that was not a clinic. He watched them leave more than an hour later. He passed me an envelope with the dates and the times written on it. I lined those pages up square with the rest of the file. A part that measures the same 3 different ways is one you can trust. This one measured the same every way I turned it. The file was airtight. My money was set. I had a small place lined up for me and the kids. All that was left was to make the cut. I will not lie and say I felt powerful. I mostly felt tired, but there was a cold calm in being 3 steps ahead of her. I picked a day she left for what she still called therapy. I had my attorney file the petition that same hour. The ground was adultery. By the time my wife got home, a process server was waiting at the curb. I was already gone. The kids were safe at my sister's place. There was a folder on the counter where her keys go. She called me 40 times that afternoon. I let every one of them ring out. When I finally answered, her first words were, not "I am sorry." Her first words were, "How did you find out?" Not "please," just "How did you find out?" I told her the truth. I told her she should have bought an Apple charger. She did not understand it. I did not explain it. She had not earned the explanation. For the first week, she swung between sorry and furious by the hour. One text begged me to think about the family. The next one called me cold for planning it behind her back. I did not take that bait either. She told her people her own version of it. Some of them believed her, and I let them. The paper did not care who believed what. Her attorney floated a deal where we both walked away even. Mine said no. Even was never what the law gave her here. The proof was already filed, and proof does not get tired the way a person does. The divorce did not drag. In this state, adultery does not wait out a separation. Her attorney tried to fight the proof, but inclination plus opportunity is a wall she could not climb back over. The phone, the appointments, the meeting in that lot, it all pointed one way, and there was no other honest read. The judge did not need a confession, and he did not get one. He got a pattern, and a pattern is enough here. We sold the house and divided whatever money was left. Her share of my retirement got carved out by a court order, and the rest stayed mine. I kept the truck, she kept her car, and we each took our own debts. The kids stayed in their school, which was the one line I refused to move. The community property split right down the middle, 50-50, but every check I banked after the day I filed stayed mine. The clock had already stopped, and the big one she was counting on was gone. The permanent alimony she had already spent in her head, barred by her own affair. She could ask for a little short-term support while it was pending. She did, and she got some. But the long-term check she planned her future around never came. Her attorney told her there was nothing to be done. I am told she cried in the hallway outside the courtroom. I did not cry. I had done my crying in a spare room over 3 quiet months. The therapist had a wife of his own, by the way. That wife found out in the middle of all this. What happened in their marriage is not mine to tell, but it did not stay quiet either. These days the kids are with me half the time. We landed on 1 week with me, 1 week with her. The first few swaps were hard on my girl. She did not understand why there were 2 houses now. I never badmouthed their mother, not once, not even when I wanted to. That part was for them, not for her. It took my girl about 2 months to stop asking about it. Now she keeps a drawer at each house and hardly notices. My boy started talking to me more than he used to. A calm house turned out to be easier on him than a tense one. They did not need to watch their father come apart. They needed him to have a plan, so I had one. The place is not the little apartment from the listing anymore. It is a real house now, with a yard the boy mows. My girl still leaves her shoes in the middle of the floor. Their mother and I keep it civil. We only talk about pickups and homework and the holidays. She still texts me sometimes, late after 11. I think she knows exactly why that hour bothers me. I keep the replies short. I keep them about the kids, and then I set the phone down. The marriage ended the morning my hand closed on the wrong charger. I just took 3 months to say it out loud. I measured. I waited. I made 1 clean cut. That is the whole story of the phone she swore I would never find. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. See you in the next one.